Thank you for your time to join our webinar, UX Design as a Job. I'm Ngọc Nguyễn. I'm Academy Program Manager at Wiselife Vietnam office. For those who haven't heard about Wiselife and Wiselife Academy before, let me do a very quick introduction. So, talking about Wiselife, we are a software development and design services company with operation in the US, Mexico, Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, and Spain. We have 6 years of experience in the market and more than 1,000 employees worldwide. Also, we have the remote team from different countries. We started as a product company and gradually we migrated to services. We realized that we could have other high growth companies to build better product faster. Through our different disciplines, we can mention like technical writer, UX designer, project management, and all engineering disciplines like site reliability, QA, AI, mobile, etc. Wiselife is the trusted ally of brands such as National Geographic, Fox Network, and Washington Post. You can see in the screen right now is some names of our clients around the world. As a part of our culture, Wiselife empowers employees and the community to innovate and grow their career. This is the reason why Wiselife Academy was created. Wiselife Academy is a platform that offers free educational programs such as workshops, talks, and certification in today's most high-value skills in technology, such as AI, technical writer, software development, UX design. So stay tuned on social media. We have accounts Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So you will be updated with all the upcoming courses. As a part of our commitment to the community, we love to host awesome people who enjoy contributing to the industry. And today we are very to welcome Monde, our senior UX designer, who will be the main speaker to share with you about the UX design as a job. So Monde, I will transfer the mic to you.
All right, so hi everybody. My name is Monde and I guess I'll be taking you through an interesting journey of UX design as a job. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. So sit back and relax and enjoy the course. Of course, feel free to ask any questions if you want to ask about the topic. And remember that this is a very safe space. So any question is actually open and welcome. And so the first part that I would like to do is actually give you a quick introduction about myself and my background. And yeah, just sit back and relax. And then this is the first part of the section. And then we'll take it from there afterwards.
Recently joined Harvey in City, and I must say so far it's been quite a great experience and quite a culture shock at the same time. I actually worked for two of one of the most prominent banks in Africa, named First National Bank, as well as Absa Group Limited. It's been quite a great learning curve, and it has brought me to this current stage at the moment. What I aim to do is to actually empower organizations, small businesses to make progress in everything that they do. Also taking into consideration that there's different markets that operate in different countries. So my main aim is to get a deeper understanding of these different markets and these different communities so that I can help provide solutions that could help improve their lives on a day-to-day basis. So pretty much you can ask me anything about design and prototyping tools. I'm pretty good at UX methodologies, visual design, agile methodologies, motion graphics, animation, hip hop music, and contrary to popular belief, I happen to listen to heavy metal as well. You can actually teach me anything about workshop facilitation because I'm a shy guy. You can teach me anything about service design, Java, and anything that is code related. That is pretty much me.
Okay, so I guess that was pretty much the quick introduction. I hope the audio issues got sorted out also with the delay. But just to give you a bit of an introduction about myself, I'm a UX designer, a visual artist. I like anime, and I'm also a videographer as well. And then you can also follow me using the links below, which is on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. And so before we get actually started about this session, here are a couple of common rules. So you can please turn off your microphone to avoid any noise. You can raise your hand if you like to say anything. And you can also use the chat for underground communication. And then questions you can put in the parking lot. And then additionally, you can smile because the session will actually be recorded. Just keep that into consideration. And so I guess we can get started with the introduction about this course and some of the things that we'll cover during the course of the actual workshop. So I'd like to ask the question, what is your job at the moment? You can actually feel free to use the Zoom chat, and it could be like your job title, for example, or a brief description of what it is that you are actually doing. So feel free to use the chat on your job and what it is that you're actually doing. So I see that there's a struggling UI and UX designer. We've got our students in the house and more students. And then Tamara Daniels is a professor, and we have a software QA engineer. And then we've got a couple of UX designers and product designers and media students about UX, and then career transitioning to a UX position. That's interesting. Yeah, so I guess we've got a wide range of people in the chat. So yeah, so feel free to ask any questions if you've got any questions, and yeah, we can take it from there. And then another question that I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you do the most of the time that you're working? So it could be anything. For example, do you attend client meetings? Are you writing emails? Do you facilitate workshops usually as you go about? Or drinking coffee the whole day, or petting your cat? It could be anything. Anybody? Looks like we have a shy crowd. So creating content, simplifying material. Okay, so Tamara Daniels, I don't know if you want to explain more about it, if you're more than comfortable with that. Okay, maybe not. So we have...
Good morning. I'm sorry. So you want me to explain more about my job and my responsibilities? Like what I do on a daily basis?
Exactly.
Okay, so first off, I am an online professor. And so initially when I started out, so I have a certificate in instructional design. So initially it was my responsibility to create content for my students to make sure that they were able to receive the instruction and guidance that they needed in order to become better writers, and master the English language. Over time, things changed, and the department decided to kind of, I guess, make the teaching materials a little bit more consistent. So they created the course content themselves. And so what I am responsible for now is pretty much simplifying the material and making sure that it's understandable and digestible for the students, so that they can be successful and pass the course, So I'm pretty much just like piggybacking off of the material that's already been created and modifying it so that it's more interesting in some cases, and so that you have that personal, interaction with the students, and right, simplifying it. So there is a lot of screen time that's involved because I teach online. I make myself available for the students 24 hours a day. There's a lot of grading papers that goes on, and that's it for the most part. You have any questions?
Yeah, I think that was very comprehensive. Seems like you have a very busy day during the class. All right, thank you so much, Tamara. And then I see others, they do freelance graphic artist, Ishmael. And then James attends client meetings and looking at the impact of design holistically for the organization. So James, I don't know if you wanna have a little say there.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm James. I'm from South Africa.
Hey.
Yeah, so what I do is there's a variety of projects across the organization, right? So as a product designer, then what I do is like I look at how every single one of those projects sort of like impact the organization, almost like from a bird's eye view point of view, and make decisions accordingly. But I'm also involved in the nitty gritty of like daily deliverables as a UX designer. So I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty still.
Okay, great. Yeah, getting your hands dirty is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thanks a lot, Jameson. We'll link up soon.
Cool.
And yeah, so I guess I also there were different descriptions of what the guys are doing on a day-to-day basis. And then because sometimes I can be a curious person, I recently asked this question to my friends and my relatives. So through my curiosity, I thought it could be an easy question for them. So I asked them about my job and how they would describe it. So I got some feedback from a couple of my friends and family, and here are some of the answers that I got. So one of the answers was you improve web pages. Another one is you work on pajamas and design websites, which is interesting, close enough sometimes. And then you analyze people, and then you organize teams to execute your projects. You code and design solutions for companies, and then you make companies grow. And then another one that I got, which is quite interesting, is you travel and you visit clients. So that's an interesting one because, well, it hasn't really been happening because of the COVID situation. But I think some of these answers were very diverse, they were very different. And I guess the purpose of this exercise or this workshop over here is to try to get a better understanding on the job that we do as UX designers. And of course, this is going to be one person's point of view. I think that you guys also have an interesting definition on what UX design is all about. So I'm more than happy to hear your feedback about it, and we can take it from there. So just a bit of a summary of what's going to happen today. We'll look into what UX is all about, UX in the industry, and then also just a brief overview of a day in the life of a UX designer, and then the UX designer, holistically, some of the characteristics, the personality traits, and then there's also going to be testimonials. We have a very good friend of ours, Andy, who will be joining us and telling us a bit of what she does, and a couple of people from a couple of our friends from Mexico also telling us a brief description on what they do as well. And then we have the open floor, the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to post a question on the Slack channel, not the Slack channel, but the Zoom chat, and then we can address those questions as well. And you can also raise your hand as well on the Zoom link, and then we can give you the floor as well. So it's an open platform. So I guess the first part is, what is UX? And I don't know if there's any person who wants to take a very brief guess on what UX is all about. Okay, so I guess I'll jump straight into it then. So before I delve into the question, I would like to take a second to I'd like you to take a second to think about this particular question. How do you make decisions as a person? And the reason I ask is because every day we oftentimes make decisions, whether we actually coming to work, we're doing different things, just every encounter is actually a decision-making process. So when we make the decisions as users, this is what happens in our unconscious minds. We are going to analyze or compare the cost and the benefit all the time. So if the cost is bigger than the benefit we receive, then our decisions might actually steer us not to do that particular action, which I'll go into in just a second. And then also it could be any kind of decision. So whether it's actually making something small like opening up your email, but then also making a decision to actually immigrate to another city or immigrating to another country, or picking a professional career, that is in itself a decision all on its own. So let's think about what happens when a user is in front of a website, for example. It could be Amazon or any e-commerce platform. So the scenario is he's actually thinking of purchasing something. So we have the first part, which is the effort, which is part of the cost. And then we have time, because he has the time to invest. He has to invest time in going to the website and then searching for the item and then adding it to the shopping cart, for example. Another thing that we take into account is we have the money part, the financial aspect of it. So because most of the times items need to be added, and items on Amazon are not really free. And then we also have the emotional aspect of it, because when purchasing an item in a physical store, perhaps what we'll do is we'll review whether everything is okay before we actually leave the store. And then when we get to our homes, we can have all the items there, but then it's different when we're purchasing online. So in this particular case, we might be afraid that the item might not arrive in time, or they might send incorrect information. So those are some of the negative emotions that are actually part of the cost for purchasing online, for example. And then we've got other attributes as well. And these other attributes could be anything like when you go to the doctor, or if you want to know how to recover from an illness, for example. And then in that case, a part of the cost might be the pain. But then what happens is, when you consider the negative aspects, like the cost being the pain, what we might have is we might receive in exchange of that pain is actually information, and that will help us be healthy, for example. And then another benefit out of those negative aspects is is another benefit in this Amazon example would be the product, for example. And we might also receive a service too. So if we're ordering something through Uber Eats, that would be another benefit. And we might have time as part of the benefit because we're saving time by receiving that service in our homes, for example. And then there's also other things as well. So if we take a look at the negative elements from this part and the positive elements that make up the benefits, what actually happens is, like, which of the items do you think are the most difficult to change when we are in the business world, when we are taking a look at these different attributes, the negative portion of it and the positive portion of it? And I guess it would be these aspects. So you have the money part, the service part, and the product as well. So when you go to a client, for example, and then you tell them, hey, I'm a UX designer and your products are too expensive, you have to lower your price, or you actually tell them, you know what, you need to just increase the amount of products you give to the customers because they are not satisfied. Sometimes if you tell them this, what they'll do is they can easily say no because that would be part of their business. And that is what it's like, part of their business strategy, for example, and their revenue strategy. But again, there are some things that we can actually change and actually modify here. And so we can balance this in a very different way and we can have the cost reduced. So the first thing that I want to talk about is actually reducing the cost, which brings me to this particular element, which is usability. So I'm pretty sure that some of you are very familiar with this term. I don't know if there's any person who wants to take a jab at it. Like, what is usability? What do you think usability is?
The ability for the user to use a product in a more intuitive manner that is not foreign and is kind of following already existing patterns of behavior.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. And then I've got Joel as well. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, man. I don't know if you want to also give a definition on what you think usability is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, I think usability is the capacity of a feature or a product to fulfill a task according to the user's expectations. So streamlining the design of a feature to work in accordance with what users would expect it to do and how it would work.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I guess both of the definitions they are very correct, actually. Adriana, I don't know if you also want to give a quick definition on what usability is.
For me, it's just that the product is really to use. Well, actually, also that has the affordances to be that the user knows easily what he needs to do with the product, what can be done.
Yep, that's very interesting, right? Okay, so I guess let's go to the next section. So I'll give you a couple of examples. And in this example, we see a walkway that people use to get to this point. But oftentimes people will use the pathway that is usually more effective for them. So they would go straight and that would normally take less time and less effort. So that is very typical from a customer point of view, whereby people would often go for the shortest, most efficient option in order to get to a specific point. And when we go back into the diagram where the users are making decisions, the magic of usability would happen in this formats. So this is what happens when we add usability to the products and services. So time and effort will be reduced. So in that way, without touching any of the benefits or financial part, we're actually helping users make decisions a lot easier. And then we're also helping them use the product or service more efficiently. And so I guess what happens if usability is deficient? That's the next example that I want to share with you. So a number of things can actually happen. So I'm sure some of you are very much aware and might have actually struggled with this example. So having this pull and push indoors when we go to the store or we go to the bank, for example. So this example, what I want to show you is a quick example of a person that is struggling with this particular example. And I do apologize.
To a building society, but leaves empty-handed without even his dignity. He hands over a demand note. Almost immediately, the security screen is activated and he runs off. He too has trouble differentiating between push and pull. He thinks the door is locked, but it isn't. Eventually, he gives up and resigns himself to waiting inside the building society for the police to arrive. But within seconds, his luck changes. An unsuspecting customer walks into the building society. The robber, realizing his mistake, seizes on this unexpected opportunity and runs off. He's still not been caught.
Yeah, so that's an unfortunate incident. So this man entered a bank because he wanted to rob the bank, and then once he got inside, the alarm was activated, and then he instantly chose to run. But then he found himself having trouble with the push and the pull door scenario. So that's like one of the examples. So I see Clovani, hopefully I pronounced it correctly. You say the Norman store, accurate. Yeah? And then the next scenario is this host who goes by the name of Steve Harvey. And I think it was in 2015 where he was the host of the Miss Universe pageant. And what happened was he announced the wrong winner, which led to a very crazy catastrophe on social media as well. So I guess what happened was when you analyze it from a usability point of view, there could be several things to actually notice. So there are several things to take into account. And maybe the first one is most people are used to reading from the top to the bottom and from the left to the right. And what happens here is that the information on the left will be more visible than the information on the right. And then the second thing is when you read the first runner-up, you can easily make the association with the winner because it says first. And then thirdly, the way the card is designed, the host was probably covering the Miss Universe text with a thumb. So he might have not have visibility of that portion of the winner at all. So those are some of the examples where usability could easily go wrong, and it could lead to a couple of consequences as well. So I guess in the business world, 69% of the e-commerce visitors abandon their shopping cart. And this is the statistics that came from the usability report in 2016. And these are some of the causes. So this was a survey from a large sample of users. So I have a question, hopefully you'll be able to answer it. And the question is, which of the causes would you say are related to usability amongst these listed there? Okay, so Joel says all. Kara says the first one did not find what I was looking for, possibly. And then there's another hint as well. So navigation and usability, that's definitely one of them. And then Adriana did not find what I was looking for in navigation and usability. That's correct. So the answer is, it's all of those 4 different ones. So if a person did not find what they were looking for, there might be a findability problem. And then findability is given by information architecture in a website. And then there's also a lack of variety of products, so product availability. And those are things that might be able to manage. For example, if we ask for the user to input their email, then we'll let them know when the items arrive or when the items is available in stock. And that is the way to manage those situations. And there's also the lack of product information, which is also one that might cover with, that we might actually cover with UX. Because at the end, we are providing value by informing the user and giving them information they need to make decisions a lot easier. So at this point, I don't know if you guys have any questions at this particular stage. Okay, so no questions at this stage, so I'll carry on. So feel free to just raise your hand if you want to raise any particular question. So this is another example. So in this particular example, it's not really that funny. So the airplane crashed into the side of the M1 motorway near England. I think this was in 1989. And the reason for this was the actual board. So at the time, the board used to be analog and it was then updated to digital. And then on the analog board, it was very easy for the pilot to see the pointers, but in the digital one, pointers are not visible enough. So the pilot didn't notice that something important was going on with the gas supply of this particular aircraft. And unfortunately, the plane crashed, which was a very sad event, unfortunately. And it also happened in NASA as well with their aircraft. So this is an example of why usability is not really limited to websites. So it can also happen with PowerPoint presentations. And so in this example, this was like a report that was generated based on the evaluation of the aircraft. And one of the pieces of information was very important and could have avoided the disaster. But then the person who created the PowerPoint presentation had actually put an animation onto it. So I think it was a fade in and fade out animation. And so what happened was when it was exported as a PDF, that animation was actually lost and the critical information was no longer visible enough. So this was the critical information that was actually left out when it got converted into the PDF, and then it also led to a very bad catastrophe. So after all of these examples, we can easily conclude that usability matters. And it talks about technology not only being useful, but also being very usable because it's actually being used by humans. And so in a way that we are able to go from useful to usable, we can actually indulge and benefit from the technology that we produce and have a more satisfactory experience overall, I think. And now what about UX on the other hand? So let's remember the illustration that we had over here with the negative parts and the negative aspects and the positive aspects when making decisions. And we have learned that this is what happens with usability. Now, when we take this into another level, we have what we call user experience in the formula. So it leads us here. So you can see that the information and the positive emotions increase the benefit while the negative emotions are decreased and ultimately reducing the cost overall. So I guess the truth is no one will forget a good experience. And of course, nobody will also forget a bad experience. So in this situation, I want you to just take a pause, a second, and then remember the last time you had a bad experience. And it could be any kind of an experience, whether it's a product or a service. It could be an airline, it could be a bank, it could be Uber Eats, or an experience with a cat that you bought at the pet store. And I'm pretty sure that most of you will remember with detail what actually happened then. So what we can do is, what we can say here is, what we do as UX designers addresses different kinds of things. So we can look into reducing pain points. We can then look at increasing value. And so we can help our customers do this, reduce the effort perceived by the users and increase the perceived value as well. And this is the essence of what most of the UX designers do in essence. And so how we can actually reduce the user pain points, for example, I can show you a couple of examples. So one main pain point when using a new platform or a new application is the onboarding process. Because we are learning to use something that we are not really familiar with. So one of the ways we can reduce the pain points is by providing user guides and tutorials, and they are showing the user in a visual way on how to actually use it, instead of overpopulating the page with a lot of information for the user to read. And then I think the video game industry is also quite interesting as well. So this is a popular game released a couple of years ago called Angry Birds. And what they did was provide very short hints, and they're not showing them all at once as well. So they interact with the game and it will show you like a couple of guides in the context, so it increases your retention on how to do it as well. And it will also allow you to guide you in different stages. And then another typical pain point is the waiting time. So you're all, I'm sure you're all familiar with this icon over here. So some people noticed that the progress bar would be better because there was a lot of people have said that this progress bar is slightly better than the other one because you'll have an idea of the progress. And then this is a platform when you're actually purchasing in a PlayStation. So while you're waiting, you'll be presented with suggested games that you can review. And then in StarCraft, you can actually see the intro as you're waiting for the game to be installed in your console. So time is relative also. And also when something went wrong, it could be because of an error on the tech side or a human error, and there are ways to manage it. So in a way that you can have an exit door. So this is something that went wrong, but then we are giving them options where you can view the status page, or you can let them know as well what is actually happening. And then another example is an app called Duolingo, which helps us learn a new language. And this creates like a sense of accomplishment using gamification. And each time you do your daily practice, you will hear sound alerts when you've reached your goal, and it provides you with valuable information, and that will keep you engaged with it. And then this is Spotify, not bad. So what happens here is you're getting personalized information, and you will see suggestions based on music you've listened to, and this will also create a playlist just for you. And in that way, it feels very personalized and customized, and that can be perceived as value overall. So personalization is also used a lot in the game industry. I don't know how many of you are actually gaming fans. It would be interesting to see some of your examples. So this is an interesting example, which is Pokemon Go. And I know that a lot of you have used it. So they're using a feeling of surprise or uncertainty. So they value, which we value a lot also. So it actually creates and makes people go out of their homes and they walk kilometers, for example, because they want to see what was inside the egg. And that is something that I guess people value as well. And then another way of increasing value is by providing users this feeling of having a reputation. So for example, in this TripAdvisor platform, you can have your reputation increased by writing reviews. As you write these reviews, you level up and then you might be recognized not as an ordinary person writing the reviews, but then you could be recognized as a level 6 critic, for example. And then now I'd like to share with you this video. This is an example of how we can use several of the items we actually mentioned before. Should I restart? Yeah, so I guess this is an example of how we can use the several of the items we mentioned before, so to increase experience of the customers. And in this case, this is an airline, and this was when they implemented a strategy to change the pain points of people being alone in Christmas. So in this traveling situation, ultimately making it a good experience for them. So by using socialization and by using the element of surprise in general. So I guess at this moment, we're not only talking about useful and usable aspects, but we're also talking about enjoyable aspects. And that's where, again, user experience comes in. And so that's the enjoyable part of it. So it's about all the perceptions and the emotions, and the difference between user experience and customer experience is that user experience is actually covering one single point of interaction, whilst customer experience, on the other hand, covers all the points of interaction within the brand and the company. And yeah, so I guess that's then the whole point of it, is to make it useful, usable, and enjoyable simultaneously. So now that we're here, I have a few questions for us to reflect on just a little bit. So my question to you guys is it possible to have good usability and poor user experience? What is your guess? Is it possible to have good usability and poor user experience? Okay, so there's a couple of yes. There's one no, there's a number of yeses. Like a talking machine. So there's a no, and I think it should be balanced. So I'm going to pick one person in the audience. Hopefully the person is not shy to give us an answer. So maybe it should be the people that responded. So Hector, are you interested in sharing your thoughts on this question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, well, my answer was yes, because you can have a very professional and good design, but a poor user experience, you know? So maybe nowadays there are a lot of tools where you can create a great design, but if you are not working at user experience, will be the same result. So yes, my answer is yes.
Awesome. Thanks for your feedback. Okay, I'm going to pick one more person and then we can go to the definition. Hopefully you're not shy as well. Let's see. Kana?
Yeah, I think you can have a bad. Sorry for that. Yeah, you can have a bad design, bad user experience, but at the same time, the usability is there, but the user experience overall is bad. This is in the case of parking experience where I think it's there's a clear use case for it. But for example, if the ticket gets stuck or something, you probably will have to knock with your machine, and there's always zigzag in the parking instructions. It's not really a flat line sort of thing. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, man. And so, yeah, so we got your thoughts. So definitely we can have a product that is really easy to use. So I guess the value that it provides to the user might not be enough, and for them to keep using it. So positive emotions might not be enough, and the negative emotions might still be high. So looking at all those different attributes, the answer is yes. And yeah, most of you have actually answered yes. And now, is it possible to have a poor usability and a good user experience? And the initial, and I guess in this, let me see. Okay, so this question is it possible to have a poor usability and a good user experience? Kara, do you wanna maybe give it a shot on why you don't think it can?
Well, it depends, actually. As I was thinking more about this, so let's take the game things that you mentioned in your examples. So you can have a game which has like a poor usability, as no instructions how to use it or whatever, and it actually can still lead to good experience. So I'm going to look back on my answer, and I think it's still a yes as well. It all depends on how the user perceives the game, for example. They can still love it, although you designed it badly, because it's personal, you know. So a user can find it still attracting, although you did not intend it for that particular reason.
Yeah, definitely interesting. And then James, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this particular matter. Is it possible to have a poor usability and a good user experience? Okay, so Hector has raised his hand. Do you wanna give us your thoughts, Hector?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I just want to add something to my answer. Well, from my point of view, usability is more related to effectiveness, efficiency, learnability, things like that. And user experience is more about satisfaction, enjoyment, and, for example, making a task that is meaningful and valuable for the customer and creating emotional connection. So I think definitely yes, it's possible, and there are a lot of situations out there. And a lot of tools, websites, and everything that looks perfect, but at the end, the user experience is not really good. So yes, I just want to add this.
All right, awesome. Thanks for adding that. Okay, so this is my personal opinion, and it's a very subjective one, because my initial answer would actually be no, because it's difficult to think that a person is really going to enjoy it. So using a product that is hard to use, for example. So usable is one of the steps to make products a good experience. In that sense, we actually have usability as one of the areas of user experience. But yeah, thank you all for the feedback on that one, which will lead us to this one. So now that we hear, are usability and user experience limited to the digital world? Interested in hearing your thoughts on this one. Adriana, do you want to give us a reason why you don't think so?
Yes, because maybe it can be like in a restaurant. I asked for a Uber Eats dish and they send it to me with like more things that I asked for, and that was like a really good experience. It was not it was linked to the digital world, but it was more like with the restaurant, or when you go to a spa and they have like this arrangement, and they also like give you a tea and they use some different oils, and they can nourish like every experience in the commercial and non-commercial areas. I think not necessarily needs to be like a digital.
Yeah, so I totally agree. The answer is it's a huge no. So it's, yeah. And I guess this will lead us to the next segment, I guess. So we kind of delved a little bit in depth on what is UX. I just want to quickly run you through UX in the industry. So just jumping straight into it, I'm going to show you this little brief timeline of how the conception of UX has actually evolved from 1940 to present day at this stage. So in 1940, there was the very first World War that was actually taking place. And so the statement usability matters actually emerged. And around this time frame, this was an era in which aircrafts were being used. The engineers that were working on it suddenly noticed that, of course, it was more difficult to recover from a disaster that happens once the aircraft crashed. And this is when the car crashed. And then at that time, when they had the technology, what they didn't have was suitable people to use that particular technology. And then suddenly they identified this element of usability that would help them to make technology just easier for the people and save a lot of money. So by the end of the First World War, the first 2 usability labs were actually created. And then there was a pathway that happened from the 1940s all the way to the 1980s. And then in the 1980s, that's where we had our PC revolution. And then at this moment, engineers actually noticed something quite relevant. So computers were very different at that time. And so in the history of technologies, PCs were going to be used by common people. And so at that point, usability became more relevant actually, which was quite interesting. And that happened around the 1980s. And then in the 1990s, a couple of years afterwards, Norman wrote his first book, and that was about user-centric design. And then some years later, the industry just noticed that it's not only about usability, and it's not only that aspect that makes technology more successful. And then, yeah, I guess that's what happened in the 90s. So in 1993, Nelson used this term for the very first time, user experience. And then we also had the web revolution that happened in the 2000s as well. And that's when a lot of graphic designers and visual designers actually emerged around that era. And then in 2010, we found certain terms as well. And some of these terms was UX designer. There was also user interface designers that emerged. And this was a very sweet spot because up until now, we're still using the very same job titles, even when we know that they could be very different disciplines. But I guess around 2010, I think there was a lot of UX designers and UI designers emerging. And then also when we fast forward to 2020, user experience is actually recognized as a very huge discipline, which has very different specialities. And now we actually are aware of the importance of having it, and when we're building products and services, for example. So I know that some of you are product designers, and I'm sure that some of you have come from different backgrounds and different disciplines to what you're actually doing now. So I guess the transitioning and the change is rather an interesting time frame as well. So I guess the growth in the UX industry is still to come. And the UX profession has actually grown substantially since 1950, and it is now truly worldwide. And even so, the expected growth until 2050 will actually dwarf anything that we've seen so far. So I guess there will be a very significant growth over the next couple of years. And we'll see an exponential growth. Like, it's funny how in the 1950s, there was very few UX designers. And then according to this projection, there's going to be a large increase of UX designers within the next 20 years or so. So it will be an interesting time as well. It will be interesting to see people transitioning from different disciplines to come within the UX space as well. So I guess it's completely realistic to expect 1% of the population to work on figuring out what should be designed and then designing those products. And the remaining 99% of the people can then work on building, selling, and servicing what we have designed. And there's an interesting quotation that I got as well, which is companies are still actually defining each role very differently. But these capture about 85% of the design job openings on LinkedIn, for example. And then this is like the average salary of UX designers in the APAC region. So we have different countries like Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia. And these were different submissions that were submitted by people online on how much they earn on average. And it varies from experience from 0 to 13 years. And then the next section is the day in the life of a UX designer. So some of you have shared some of your some of your experiences, some what you do on a day-to-day basis. So this is some of the things that UX designers get up to. So they work closely with teammates. They work very closely with users and customers, client stakeholders, field experts, visual designers, developers, and project managers. And then they do travel to faraway places as well to get a better sense of the users. They also observe users as well as their context. Just give me a second. And then they collect stories that will help them empathize. And then they also understand the business as well. So they conduct stakeholder interviews and just get better context on what the true problem is all about. And the whole idea is to help businesses make better decisions for the users and building an understanding around the users, and also building that understanding even further as well, and analyzing that data as well. So it's collecting the data, analyzing the data using different tools, and then obviously identifying the right problems to solve, working very closely and collaboratively, and then generating ideas to solve those different problems and using visualizations to communicate. And then building low fidelity prototypes and transforming those low fidelity prototypes into high fidelity prototypes using different kinds of tools which are available on the market, and then testing it and validating it with common users as well. So I guess in essence, collaboration with other teams is very important. And the collaboration over the past couple of years has been quite interesting because we've shifted from the physical space and we've moved into the remote framework as well. So the adaptation was very interesting, and using those different tools to collaborate was a very important one. Thinking strategically and about implementation, and then also just taking the physical artifacts and then transforming it into digital artifacts like your user experience, the journey mapping and different artifacts. And always learning, I guess, just learning from one another and sharing knowledge deeply, having a lot of deep conversations and multiple conversations. And of course, the most important aspect was really having fun while doing it. And I think that is the essence of what we really do right here in Wiseline, finding ways of really having fun, whether it's in the physical environment or in a remote environment. And in essence, this would be the day in the life of a UX life of a Wiseliner. And I'm sure that some of you might share some of the same attributes here and there. And it might be different as well. It's not to say that it's set in stone. And so looking at the overall characteristics of the UX designer, does anyone want to take a guess on what the characteristics are of a UX designer? Okay, so Kara says you need to be open, empathetic. Interesting. Do you want to explain more, Kara?
Yeah, definitely. So as a UX designer, you need to let loose of your own world, and you need to understand whoever you are building something for. So you need to be empathetic in a way that you're understanding how the other person may feel. So you need to have, you need to be open-minded and empathetic to be able to put yourself in that person's situation so that you'll be able to work on that as a start. I think that's one of the most important things to have.
Awesome. Anybody else want to give it a try?
I guess a critical thinking. is the ability to think clearly about what to do or what to believe, and understand the logical connections between the ideas. So yes, I think this is a good skill as well.
No, definitely. Joel, do you wanna have it a try? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Adriana?
Yeah, I think a good UX designer needs to be good at observing and analyzing information in order to use it in the product he's gonna build.
All right, awesome. All right, thanks a lot for those. So this is just going to be a very quick overview, and all of you guys are very correct. So open, empathetic, very observant, amongst others as well. So these are the ones that we have put together. So this person has to be very curious. So there must be a person that would be able to be aware of their surroundings and their world and able to notice what is going on and will stand up and do research. It has to be somebody who uses both sides of the brain. So you might have heard about this theory of the left brain, which could have different sets of analytical skills. And we think of numbers and words, and it's a very concrete approach. And then we have the right side of the brain, which is the creative one in the holistic one. And it's very abstract on the other hand. So you're going to be using both parts because you're going to be using the right side of the brain to get the insights and then use the left side of the brain to analyze the information. And you're going to use the right side of the brain to get the creative solutions. But then again, the left side of the brain to help analyze and make sure that those solutions are actually feasible. And then, yeah, I guess you need to be able to solve everyday problems. And then these are some of the technical skills that you might have as a designer. So it doesn't always mean that the designer needs to have all those particular skills. So a designer can specialize on certain skills above the others. So they can be a generalist, a person who covers most of them in general. So it could be a person who is strong in interaction, design and visual design, or strong in information architecture and information technologies. And this would shape one of the designers. But then on the other hand, you might have a different kind of designer who might be very strong in service design, qualitative research, or human factors, or information technologies. So you have different sets of designers with different set of skills that are out there. And there's also non-technical skills. So like some of these skills like collaboration, business service, being able to analyze and learning, facilitation, advocacy, and then critical thinking. I know that you guys mentioned that a lot. And then mentoring, teaching in general, being able to write, and also negotiation are some of the non-technical skills that a UX designer could potentially have. And well, public speaking as well. There's a lot of UX designers that I know that are very skilled at public speaking. And storytelling as well. So you could have some of these as well. And I guess we're all different. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I know there's a comment, triple X. Well, there's a number of X's. Daniela, I don't know if you want to explain. You want to explain yourself? Okay, maybe not. All right, so I guess we're gonna move to the next session. So these are some of the recommended books. So there's a very interesting one by Steven Krug. So Don't Make Me Think. There's also The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, and 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People. So those are some of my favorite books. You can also feel free to recommend other books as well. And I guess it's always important to share knowledge and share information. And then we also have certain recommended trainings. So we have the UX certificates by Wiseline, and we also have the certificate program by Nelson Norman Group, and the information specialization program by the University of California in San Diego as well. And I guess that's the designer and the attributes and some of the characteristics. And then in this next segment, I'm going to introduce a good friend of mine, good friend of ours, Andy. She's going to be telling us more about her testimonial. So what I'll do is I'll mute my microphone.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Andrea Cuella, or Andy, and I'm UX designer at Wiseline Vietnam. So I studied industrial design in Spain, and then I had the opportunity to participate in an European exchange program that maybe some of you know. This program is called Erasmus. So I went to Copenhagen, and this in Denmark, and this is the first time I came into the user-centered design, or also called now user experience design. And 1 year after, I started working as a UX designer in a huge company in Paris, in the National Postal company. And then also I had the opportunity to work for startups and digital agencies. And yeah, what to say, what I love the most in my work, my job, is being in contact with people during the research phases and the user test. And what I love is to decipher people's behaviors in order to make their life easier. And also I think that the world around us is an interesting and a huge and very important source of knowledge. I do also like to work in different user contexts and for different industries in very dynamic environments. I think that what makes me passionate of my job is the fact that our work, or as a UX designer, is not static at all, is always evolving as the technology is evolving, and the society also, and the challenges that our society is facing are also evolving. For example, we are living in a pandemic situation. So are the things that make our work and job as designers evolving, and also this situation challenge ourselves to always find a different way to do the things and to improve also the way the things have been doing. What I'm doing today, specifically today, is I'm working for a big retail company, one of our clients that is in Spain. So I'm lucky, I'm working in Vietnam, but still speaking in Spanish with my clients. And I help them to design a platform. And this platform helps them to manage all the factories that are working for them, and to ensure that the factories are following the environmental and social rules that the company has established. Besides that, I'm also leading the Women in Leadership program here in Vietnam. So the Women in Leadership program is an internal program that we have here at Wiseline. And now I think that is also open for the external people. And in this program, we encourage and we empower women to develop their career and to surpass their challenge. It's a safe space in which we can discuss about everything that is important for us, for our development, for surpassing ourselves in our daily basis. And that's it. So.
All right, thank you so much, Andy, for the insights. And yeah, so there are a couple of other testimonials that I would like to share, but before we go there, I actually really want to get your, well, your side of the story. So any questions that you have or anything, any comments that you'd like to share with the rest of us, that would be great. Adriana, I know you've raised your hands.
Yeah, wanted to ask, oh, thanks. How difficult it is to like have a client from another country and knowing that you're building a UX experience for people that it has not the same culture, the same way of seeing things, and how do you manage to make a user experience like right for them? How do you manage to see this? I think it's one of the hardest thing, no?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the hardest ones. So I'd like Andy to actually answer this particular one because she's currently working with an international client as well. I'm also working with an international client at the moment, which is based in Australia. And it's slightly different because I think there's been a lot of work that has already been underway. And so it's pretty much picking up from the insights that they've already gathered and they have a plan in action in place already. So in my situation, we came in at a much later stage of a project when it's a lot easier to have different interactions and use the insights that is already provided. But if you're coming up with something completely from scratch, I think it's a very different kind of situation. So maybe Andy might provide like better insights onto this one. So I'll mute my microphone and then we can go.
Okay. Yes. In my case, I'm working for this Spanish client, and since I'm Spanish, but it's quite easy because we share the same culture. We are working for several European companies. So from our side, is as a European, is easy to have an overview of the culture, and of course, we always try to do this research when it's possible regarding based on the project context in order to know more about the culture, about the users, but the culture is a very, very impactful area to take into consideration, and the client is helping a lot on that, as Monde has said. Besides that, when it comes to cultures that we are very, very different from ours, for example, the Chinese culture, and a culture that maybe we are not very familiar with, what we do is to partnership with professionals, with designers, especially user researchers from that country, that specific country, in order to be sure that we understand everything that can impact in the conception of our service or platform, depending on what we are designing.
Thanks.
Okay. I see in the chat, Adriana asked a question regarding certification cost. So the question is, what do you think about the Google UX at Coursera? So how do you think about this question?
Sorry, audio got laggy. I cannot understand.
Okay, so I see the question. So what do you think about the Google UX course? I haven't actually been exposed to this particular course, but I think it would be something that is definitely worth taking into account. Adriana, I don't know if you want to tell us more about this particular course. I'm assuming that you're slightly familiar with it.
No, I want to take it, but I have not taken it yet.
Okay, so yeah, it's definitely worth something considering it. I haven't personally taken it as well. Are there different kinds of curriculums within the course?
I think it's like UX with all the bases, so you can specialize.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And there's another participant that raised their hand. I think Kara, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I had a question about the fact that so your colleague mentioned something about culture, which is really interesting. So how do you approach this as you have a project where you're not familiar with the culture? Like, how do you deep dive on that? Like, do you do research like online? Or do you like watch a movie? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So during research, I think research is definitely one of it. I think recently I had to like deal with a client based in Thailand. And so like I did a little bit of research on certain basic principles, but there are certain things that you'd be surprised that are very common, especially in the work environment and especially with some of the things, some of the solutions that you could bring to the table. So it's weird because from like the 2 years, or the 1 year being in Vietnam, there were maybe challenges in the beginning, but I feel as though like as I went by after 4 months or so, it's a lot more enjoyable to learn more about the things that you do not know, because it allows you to be more open about different possibilities and understanding different users from a different context, and getting outside of the comfort zone as well is just something that has motivated me as a designer to kind of tackle problems in a very different way. So I guess it's part and parcel of accommodating those set of challenges on, like, for example, a cultural shift or understanding different cultures or interacting with clients that are not the same culture as you. But I think there's a great experience in just learning and adapting to it personally. I don't know if you have anything to share, Andy. All right.
Because we are in the same room.
Yeah.
So no, you can't see me.
That's
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, what Monde has said. I mean, I completely agree. Also, we have to say that we are lucky that here at the Wiseline, we have I don't know how many different nationalities. 10. More than 10. Okay, thank you. A lot of different nationalities, especially in APAC, we have more than 10 different nationalities. And that's also a very important source of knowledge, just to reach out to our colleagues to know more about the culture. And we had the case recently. We had to prepare a proposal for one client, and we have one of our colleagues. It wasn't about the culture, but about his passion. He's passionate about it's passionate about cars, vehicles in a general way, and he provided us for the proposal and very powerful insights to prepare the proposal. So luckily we have good partners also. Or
So
friends.
it's really interesting that you're saying like you have a company which shares like different cultures and backgrounds so that you can like prepare. I'm just like curious to understand what exactly are you looking for to analyze. Like I've been reading on certain things like colors can be different intercepted by people in different cultures. For example, black is commonly used in Europe for mourning, but you have, I think, somewhere in Asia, I do not know which part, they use the color red as like for mourning. Do you research these kind of things? What specific topics do you look for?
So if it's, for example, a project in which we have to design an interface, the color is going to be super important. Also the characters, for example, in the Chinese culture, they don't use the same characters as European, for example. So this is all the things we need to take into account. So part of the research in that case is regarding that, but also when it comes, for example, to, we had the case recently to redesign the purchase funnel in a website. We are going to look for the behaviors and which behaviors are linked to the culture when it comes here to purchase, also the trends, and also in our case, our specific case, it was also interesting to analyze the administration process, because there are some rules fixed by the government that we needed to follow regarding the purchasing funnel. So this is a research that we had to do, extra research, because we weren't familiar of these rules that we needed to respect in this country, specific country.
Okay.
It really depends on the project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. One last question, and I'm done. So I'm sorry taking your time too much. It's more about like your overall experience. How did you find Wizline? Like, how did you get here, like where you are now?
Yeah, so the experience is quite different from person to person. So I think I was approached when I was in South Africa. And so as I was approached, they asked me to actually send in my work. And then from there was a whole interview process that took a couple of months. I got to be interviewed by different members. So there were a team in GBL that managed the interview process. And then there was also an overall UX challenge that they provide you with to understand exactly your thinking skills and your analytical skills. And once that was done, they brought you in so that you can present your findings. And then there's a whiteboard session where there's 3 experts interviewing you, and you pretty much give your insights as well. They ask the relevant kind of questions. And then you potentially go into another phase whereby you do an on-site tour where you get to see the offices as well. So I think that was my personal experience with the interview process as a UX person. I think maybe Andy could have been a different experience, but yeah, it could. That's what I went through personally. But
you were in South Africa and you are now in Vietnam. Like, did you travel to Vietnam to do the whole interview?
No, so we did that online. Yeah, I did that completely online, and then I traveled to Vietnam as soon as everything was
done. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Thank you. And Andrea?
Yes, it's quite similar. In my case, I was, even if I'm from Spain, I was in Paris, in France, and I was looking to an international experience outside Europe. So on my LinkedIn profile, I changed my situation. Like, I'm looking for a job in these areas, in these countries, and yeah, Wiseline reached out to me. And I do the entire process. And I have to say that from the beginning, I wanted to be part of that company. Here I'm going to do a little bit of promotion, but I have to say that I was looking for a super inclusive environment, and is a thing that was missing my previous job experiences. And here, that's why my first questions were about the different the representation of the different nationalities, cultures in the company, and also the gender. And here I found a very inclusive and safe space and environment, working environment in which I can develop my skills and my career. And yeah, that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions. Cheers.
All right, I'm moving here. Just want to add some more information from Wisely side for your concern about recruitment process. So Wisely have a very specific recruitment process, and we give the flexibility for all talented around the world. If you are not within Vietnam or the region we are looking for the talent, on the recruitment process, you will do mostly via Zoom meeting or Google Hangout as long as you're familiar with the platform. Yeah, and Wisely's opportunity open for all talented around the world. So no matter where you are right now, as long as you're suitable with the job, we will reach out to you via linking based on the status of your LinkedIn profile, or you can apply online. Then our talent ambassador team will discuss with you about the opportunity. So this is the information I would like to add in for your information.
Thank you very much. I'm actually inquiring not for myself, but it's actually for my younger sister who is looking for a different opportunity. She speaks Korean, and I'm going to sell her a little bit here. And she speaks Dutch, but it's from Arabic background. And the reason why I did this is just to understand if UX is something for her, which I definitely think so. I'll be reaching out more on a personal level to get some more details for that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so everyone, I think that we a little bit run over for the schedule that we set for the webinar today. So if you have any further concern or question, you can reach out to our speaker after the event. We will share with you the contact of our speaker so that you can connect and discuss further with them about the topic. Last but not least, I would like to I think okay. Okay. We would like to hear from your experience during the event today. So please have to fill in the feedback survey, just 1 or 2 minutes to let us know about your experience, how you feel during the event today, so that we can improve better our event in the future.